Okay, we're live, and welcome, guys, to yet another edition of the Strange Realities Conference preview episodes. We've got we're on the Conspiratorial Show Facebook, and we're on YouTube. Conspiratorial Podcast streaming live. Nobody watching at the moment, but I'm sure we'll have somebody at some point. So we're just doing one single guest at the moment. That's going to be at Strange Realities Conference coming up here in about 10 days, Surfiel, if you can believe it.
Yeah, and, it's coming.
Okay. So, yeah, we are here with Reverend Michael J.S. Carter. Reverend Carter, how you doing? How you doing today?
Good to see y'all. I'm glad people are staying healthy.
Yes, sir.
Gotta stay healthy.
Yes. And that's
kind of healthy. I mean, if you can, you gotta keep that immune system high.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're trying to do with this conference, is keep everybody healthy and not everybody beaten in the same place like we used to.
Yeah.
So Reverend Carter, we're happy to have you at the Strange Realities Conference.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really great to have you with us. You were on Conspiratorial a long time ago.
Yep.
It feels like ancient times now.
I remember. Back in the day, as the young folks say.
That was like 2014, I think, or maybe 2015 might have been the last time I had you on. And I was kind of hoping that we would have you on with Guy Malone, because you guys have got a couple of interesting kind of contrasting different kind of subjects for this conference. Because you're going to be talking about UFOs and the Bible, and Guy is going to be talking about aliens or demons, and here's why. That's the title of his conference. So his presentation. So we're going to be talking to him a little bit later on. But Reverend Carter, I kind of want to get a gist of what you're going to be talking about at the Strange Realities Conference coming up here at the end at the last weekend of this month.
Yeah, the last week. Well, I'm going to be talking about, and when I first started talking about UFOs in the Bible, very few people were talking about it at all. Even more conservative brothers and sisters. Now, that had been my experience, and then as time evolves and as people do, and then more conservative brothers and sisters were talking about ETs or off-world intelligences, but they did say that they were demons. For me, it was a double-edged sword, because at least people were now talking about it, right? It's one thing to say they don't exist at all, and that it's a desert and a sea between saying they do exist. I will say this: I do not personally believe that every extraterrestrial that people say they visit or whatever are angels, in the sense of that that everybody means you well, right? Just like there are different people who are more benevolent and malevolent. I would agree with that. I'm not like Brother Stephen Greer, who, for instance, will say that they're all sweetness and light. I can say that the ones that I have had interaction with, and I can't say they've all been sweetness and light, because I don't know. I just know what happened with me. Do you see what I'm saying? I think that there's life in the universe, abundant life, but I can't say that all of them want to be my best friend.
Right.
I can't say that. I wouldn't say that about another human being. Mm-hmm. But I do think that we need to be talking about this, which we are. Now the government is, they're not coming out and saying that off-world intelligences exist, but they are coming around to, like, we've been tracking them. We don't know. I believe they do more than they're letting on. But I think now the conversation is open. 20 years ago, I couldn't talk about this without my church saying, you need to find another job.
Yeah,
so we've come a long way.
Right.
that kind of brings me to an interesting point. I should have set this up though a little bit. Like, so you kind of have an interesting background with all this because you are an alien contact experiencer, which is a term that I much more go by than like alien abduction. I think that alien
Yeah,
contact is much more appropriate. I think it's a more appropriate term. But you are also a reverend, as
yeah,
we described, but
yeah.
you're a Unitarian Universalist minister.
Yep. Yeah,
So
I grew up in the Baptist tradition.
yes, you
Yeah,
did. Yeah, I
I grew
remember
up
you
in the
talking about
Baptist
that.
tradition. Yeah, yeah. And see, I thought I was crazy. You know, I had to go to a mental health professional when these things were happening because I had no reference for them, Brother Sergio and Adam, because I did not believe in them. I was raised in the Baptist tradition, man. I when I say drink the Kool-Aid, I don't mean, and I don't want to use that in a negative sense, because there's still something about that tradition that I cling to. Because you never forget the bridge that brought you over.
Sure.
You know, you never. And so, even though maybe never is not the best word, but I didn't believe it, but it served me well because some of the things that had happened, I didn't want people to say, "Oh, come on, man, you saw that on TV, or you saw a movie." I did not believe in it, and I remember when I was growing up in Baltimore, I forget the context, but someone asked me, "You don't believe in you?" They were shocked, and I was a kid, and I said no, and they said why, and I said no, the Bible is not in the Bible. You see, I try to keep my feet on the ground and in the sky in the sense of staying grounded. People talk about the fifth dimension, the third dimension, and I don't know what really that means. I do know that there are other beings that I've come in contact with, but I'm here on the earth, and like what Brother Sergio and I were talking about, how do we help our fellow human beings? We were talking about people being out of work and that kind of thing, and you got to keep. Henry David Thoreau said it's okay to build sandcastles in the sky, but you have to put a foundation under them. And so I talk about this stuff, and it has happened, and it probably will continue to happen. And at the same time, when we hang up, I got to go get some groceries. I got to pay my rent needs to be paid. You kind of walking and you got to integrate both these worlds. That's how I come at it. I can say I've seen these beings, and we'll talk about that. But, but's not a good word. And I still got to get up in the morning and brush my teeth and pay my rent, and now everybody's seeing them. And so what becomes more important to me is, yes, I've seen star people. Yes. But I still have, I'm still trying to figure out, how do I get along with my fellow human beings? How do I deal with my fear? How do I deal with race issues? How do I deal with money issues? How do I raise my child? This is real life we're talking here.
Yes.
So you got to be able to integrate it. How do I love my freaking neighbor? And this is, I think, what they want too. We can't even get along with one another. So what are we going to do when we meet these people face to face as a group? We'll probably shoot first and ask questions later.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we got racial stuff. We got the climate change. Brother Sergio and I were talking about, the media is keeping us distant from each other. You can't blame everything on them. We make choices. So even though I've had these experiences, I want to know how to love. I want to know how to keep my heart open. And I think that when I talk about this stuff in the context of UFOs, if you remember in Nashville, I got a standing ovation. I've never gotten a standing ovation. And that's not why I do it. But you know why people loved it? Because I talked about the Bible and UFOs, but then I started talking about how we grow spiritually and how we got to come together, man, because whether they're UFOs or not, we're going to kill each other. And that's what people, I feel, are struggling with. I love that you've seen UFOs, and this is great information, but I need some wisdom too. How do I get along with the person who doesn't like me because of the way I look, or because I'm a conservative and you're not? And that's where the rubber hits the road. And I think with the UFO, at least from my context, a lot of the beings, they want us to be able to learn how to do that. How do I get along with my brothers and sisters? I'm not saying they all want that. I'm just saying that that's what I got when people don't agree with me. Brother Malone, we can agree to disagree, but I don't have to shake my fist and go, well, you just don't get it. Or you're in a red state and I'm in the green state and you're a mess and I'm not. And nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah,
nobody wants to hear that.
I think that was like from the early days of Conspiranormal. That was probably one of my favorite episodes when I had both of you guys on and to kind of compare notes about your experiences and how each one of you felt differently about it, but yet you guys kind of had a similar kind of root and a similar kind of belief system going into all of it. And that was probably probably one of my most favorite episodes. But you are right. I mean, like, we got to deal with all these practical things day in and day out. And we've got, especially right now, we've got so much turmoil going on in the world. And it's almost just like we have to have some kind of balance. And we may be dealing with dealing with good and bad forces on another realm as well. So
because there are negative forces. I'm not Mary Poppins here.
Right.
It's just when I was in New York, and remember Bud, when Bud Hopkins was alive, and Bud and I got along famously. He regressed me at one point. He was very good too.
Did you know Peter Robbins?
We've never met. I've read his book, and we text each other on Facebook.
Yeah, he was big in with Bud Hopkins. He was pretty much like his research assistant for a very long time.
And Bud and I disagreed. Bud thought that they were all bad, and the way I interpreted it, and I said no, that hasn't been my experience, and we still got along. It wasn't, we're human beings, and the thing is that everybody sees things the way they are. We don't see things as they are. That we see things the way we are. I know people who have had terrible, frightening, traumatic experiences with these brothers and sisters who come from wherever they come from. I know people who have. And I listen to that and I empathize with that. And I can also say, but that hasn't been my experience. And we do that as human beings. If somebody goes out here and calls me the N-word, I can get angry with them, which I don't even get angry anymore. And I'm just using this. But that doesn't mean everybody that looks like this person is out to get me. That's just not real. But if we can't do that even with ourselves, how are we going to do it with people who come from other places?
Yeah. It's kind of like a metaphor for human interactions.
Yeah. And we do that. And whether it's race or whatever, someone is a Trump supporter and I'm not. And so now you're my enemy. We just see the world a little differently. That doesn't mean I can't still treat you with dignity and respect. But if I can't treat you with dignity and respect, what am I going to do with someone who has 5 eyes or 2 heads or looks like an alligator or looks like, they got an egg for a head? I'm going to kill them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Can you imagine the shock of that whenever that actually does happen, right?
It'll get your attention. I tell you that. I thought I was going to have a heart attack.
Well, so let's talk about that, Reverend Carter, because I mean, it's been so long since we've had you on the show. We've got a lot of people.
It's been about 5 years.
Yeah, we've got a lot of people that haven't heard that story now, and let's just kind of just go over what happened to you. What was your experience?
Okay. This was one of many, but remember now, I don't believe in UFOs, and I'm trying to do what Jesus wants me to do and all that kind of stuff. And I went to December 28th, 1989. I went with my girlfriend at the time, who later became my first wife. We went to Mexico, Cancun. And, they had bus tours to Chichen Itza to see the pyramids. See the Mayan pyramids, which was something to see. I haven't seen the Egyptian ones, but And so hanging out, had a great time. We're there for 10 days. In Mexico, that was a day trip. And it was hot and it was beautiful. My friends were freezing in New York. So we go back home. We always wanted to go home between Christmas and New Year's. And so some friends of mine had invited me to a party in Hell's Kitchen down near Times Square. And I was tired, but I wanted to go. I wanted to show off my tan, and I was real dark from the sun. And, and they were freezing. That's, wanted to gloat. I wanted to gloat. And so we went. I went. She didn't want to go. And no adult beverages were there. I had some deviled eggs, which I love. And I stayed there for about an hour and a half. I caught the subway back home. And in the middle of the night, I don't know what, to this day, I don't remember where I had to go to the bathroom or whatever, but I felt a presence in the room. I sleep on my stomach. I turned over. There was a being at the foot of the bed. And that, remember, during this whole time, either my girlfriend either could not or she just didn't wake up. The room is lit up like I'm in Times Square. I'm on the 15th floor of the Excelsior Hotel. So this is in a major, it's in Manhattan. There's a being at the edge of my bed about 3-4 feet tall. He's got this blue light around him, like a cobalt blue, and around that, it's the brightness. A jumpsuit with a turtleneck, like a jumpsuit, real spindly looking man. I'm assuming it was a man. And the suit looked like Reynolds wrap. That's how it looked. It would look like Reynolds wrap that I have in there in my kitchen. And he looked at me and I looked at him and I thought my heart was going to come out of my chest. I pulled the covers up over me. I got in the fetal position. And I've had a gun pulled on me twice, but I was never as scared as that. I pulled the covers up. I heard this whoosh, whoosh, like a wind, and the temperature dropped like I was outside. It felt like I was outside. I pulled the covers down. Nobody was there. Quiet. I woke up my girlfriend and I told her what went on. I was scared to death, and also I was hyped, so I couldn't go back to sleep.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
I was hyped.
Yeah.
And this started happening twice a month, full and new moons. They would come. They wouldn't say anything. They would show me pictures in my head. They would paralyze me. After a few of these, I started trying to read up. I went to the bookstore of the Open Center on Spring Street. I felt like I was a little boy buying condoms. I wouldn't even look the cashier in the face. I had a stack of books, and I wouldn't even look at him. And he said to me, "You don't look too good." I remember. And he was bald with dreadlocks. The only dreadlocks he had were on the side. He was a very interesting looking man. And he said, "Is this a hobby or is this for real?" And I said, "It's for real." And he said, "You don't look too good." And he wrote down a number. He said, "Call that number. You'll be with some people who can help you." And that's how I got in my support group. I bought every book I could find on it. I picked up a book called Encounters by Dr. Edith Fiore. I still have over there on my bookshelf. In the back of the book, it had therapists that you could go to if you had these experiences. I can laugh now, then I couldn't. I couldn't sleep. I wouldn't turn the light out. And they would always come when my girlfriend wasn't there because she worked at night. Every new and full moon, not the exact day, but for about 8 months.
That's interesting.
But she regressed me, Dr. Jean Mundy, whose picture is on one of my slides. And she let me know that I was not crazy. She said, "It's good news is you're not crazy. You can figure out if it's good or bad the other way, but you have been visited." And then years later, Bud regressed me. And that was the beginning of my journey. Since then, I have seen reptilians. I have seen blue people, with someone told me they were for Arcturus. I had a healing from a blonde, blue-eyed brother, big muscular brother. Preston Dennett put me in his book UFO Healings Part 2. He put my story in there, and and when I came back from seeing you in Nashville, I met a woman there who was a big fan, and she put me in touch with people for speaking engagements and what have you. But to make a long story short, she had a friend that was a lawyer and who was also a psychic. And I said, that's an interesting, I've never met a lawyer. Usually that's left brain, right brain. And she said, she said, listen, I don't know you. So-and-so speaks highly of you. And I told, she said, I heard your story from my friend. She said, have you ever seen a praying mantis before being? I said, no. She said, this is going to sound weird, but I see a praying mantis being around you, and you're going to see him. And what do you say to that? What am I? And I said, okay, okay. 2 nights after that, a praying mantis being came in my room and jumped on my bed there, this far from my face. I had never seen that species before. I had a friend of mine make me a statue of, if you want, I can run and go get it to you. It's right there, of the being that came in my room.
Sure, let's give him.
Okay,
Yeah,
hold on,
little visual aid here.
Yeah, hold on.
Excellent, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really fascinating story. These are some great experiences. I always love to hear these type of experiences.
Now I got to tell you, it doesn't take my faith away in God. This is the blue person that I saw with the big head.
Okay.
But here's the person who came 2 days later.
The praying mantis,
Yeah.
The mantid, the classic
Yeah.
mantid. You know what's interesting about that, Reverend Carter, and I've actually got a question for you from the YouTube audience.
Yeah, here's the.
I can't see that
he's
one.
Blonde hair. See him? He's a handsome guy, blonde.
So he's a Nordic.
Yeah. He looks like like he's Swedish or one of those people.
So, the question for you, the mantis is another figure that, and the reptilians too. People will see those in the ayahuasca or like DMT experiences, but more likely in the ayahuasca experiences too.
Well, and I got to tell you again, I can't say they were good or bad. I could say that the blonde person healed my blood clot. I can tell you that. But these people weren't good or bad. They were just there. Like even when I saw the reptilian walk through my wall, and it's easy for them to say, like, the mouth doesn't move, don't be afraid. Well, that's easy for you to say, but what are you going to do with that? Don't be afraid. He touched me, but he never harmed me. I don't know, what can I say to that? They never, the little blonde people, well, they weren't little, they healed a blood clot that I had. So that's why I know these beings are real.
Right.
But I can't say I don't worship them. I don't say, well, all the blondes are the angels and all that. But I think in the Bible, I think this is what our ancestors, they saw some of these beings, and they were trying to explain in their language what they were seeing.
Got a question for you, actually, from the YouTube audience, Reverend Carter.
Okay.
They want to know if you could talk about the puncture wound you experienced.
A puncture wound.
Yeah, that's what this person is asking.
No, I had a blood clot.
Okay, that might be it. Maybe they can clarify that.
Oh yeah. Well, that's where these people came.
Yeah.
Okay. July 4th, 2013, 10 minutes to 9:50 p.m. EST, Eastern Standard Time. There's a little backstory I'll tell you quickly. I don't like fireworks. Not that I don't like them, but here, when you go to the fireworks, you get there at 7 o'clock, and they don't start till 9:30. You got to find parking. Mosquitoes are eating you up. People are sitting like you need a lubricant. They're so close. The fireworks are over at 5 of 10. So it takes me 2 hours for a half-hour show. I don't like. But meanwhile, I'm trying to be a good dad. My daughter and my ex-wife love them. July 13th, 2013, look it up. It was a severe thunderstorm here in Asheville, so they canceled them. I was so happy. But it was a lot of thunder. And I had a lot of friends who fought in Vietnam. And they would tell me about their experiences. Some of them were special forces. Some of them were regular army, what they went through. And so they would say, Michael, you would have to sleep through artillery, incoming and outgoing. You'd be sleeping in a foxhole. There'd be mud there. You try to catch a couple hours sleep. I was like, oh, my God. And when the thunder was happening, I said to myself, I remember this is what my buddies went through because I couldn't go to sleep. But I was laying on my stomach like in 1989, I sleep on my stomach, and I felt something in the room. And I got to tell you, when these folks visit me, the air gets real still. I can't explain it. It gets like heavy. You know what? I just can't. I don't know any other word. It gets really quiet and still. It's freaky. Like if they're birds, you probably wouldn't hear them. I turned around. My bedroom's right there. And there was a being with like a page boy haircut, blonde brother. Hair wasn't long as him, but blonde. Muscles, ripped. He had on a robe with a belt that was like a rope. And it's not a hoodie. What do you call them? Like the monks, a cowl. He had that on. Big blue eyes. But you could see his muscles bulging through this robe. Maybe there's a gym on the ship. I don't know. I looked at this guy, and he looked at me, and he stuck his hand out, and a light green apple light came out, and it hit me in my stomach. Now, here's the backstory. 2013, I'm getting divorced. My dad died. Sounds like a country western song. And I was going to get fired from my job because I thought I was. I'd wound up keeping it for another year and a half. But this was all happening at once. And this being comes. And so I had a blood clot that was from my ankle to my groin area on my right leg. I have real skinny legs. They look like ostrich legs to me. My right leg looked like LeBron James' leg. I wish my legs were that muscular, but I had a blood clot. I was taking Coumadin, and which they call Wayfarin, and I was injecting myself in my stomach with something called enoxaparin. It's a blood thinner. This guy, well, it wasn't him, but blonde hair. I don't want to say they all look alike, but you get my drift. And when I got out of bed, well, after he left, he just dematerialized. His body, like Star Trek, the molecules, he was gone. I called Preston because I already had his book about UFO healings. My leg, the blood clot was gone. I called Preston. He's on the West Coast, so it's 10 of 7 there. He wasn't there. I look at my leg again. It's gone. I didn't have the wherewithal to take a picture. I was just buzzing and I was out. But when I saw my ex-wife and my daughter, they were like, oh my God, your leg is healed. I said, yeah, that's my proof. Well, I mean, they know I had these things before. They knew I wasn't making it up. My big thing was when I went to the doctor to tell them to show them that my leg had healed, because I had to go back. You know, they stick this thing and they take your blood and they do all that with clots. And the doctor was not having it. The doctor was like, oh, come on, what happened? And I said, maybe the medicine's working. He said, you were just here 10 days ago. I just took your blood work. And finally, I said to the doctor, look, aren't you happy for me? Because they were not letting it go, Adam or Sergio. They were not letting it go. And finally, they said, of course we are. Of course we are. But I wound up putting them on the defensive. I said, can we just say it's unexplained? I could not tell my doctor that a blonde-haired extraterrestrial hit me with a green light, and I could not say that. But that's what happened.
Yeah, he probably would have been like, oh,
they might have put you in another hospital.
Yeah. They would have taken me to But that, and then that's so I didn't have a puncture wound. That's the wound that I was healed of, that blood clot. That was the $100,000 thing there. Oh yeah. And I had never seen a blonde, blue-eyed person like that before. My friends in Europe who are contactees, experiencers, they say we see them all the time here. I had never, up to that point, I had never seen that. And then when I meditated the next day, I closed my eyes, that being was there. He looked at me. I remember I closed my eyes and that face was there. And it was two of them. And they both blinked at the same time. And I blinked. And I remember opening my eyes and going, what? And closing my eyes. And they were there. And I just said, thank you. I said, I hope you can hear me. Thank you.
Reverend Carter, do these things happen more to you when you're in kind of like a transition in your life?
That's a great question.
Because it kind of sounds like what you said, like you were talking about the July 4th time period, and you were going through a divorce. You were kind of looking at maybe your job wasn't going to be around much longer. Your dad had passed away. A lot of stuff that just kind of happened all at the same time, and then all of a sudden, these experiences happen. Yeah,
there's something to it. Look, because in December, at that time, I was an actor in New York in '89. I was living a fast life. I was drinking and drugging and sexing and smoking, and they came. That was the first time, and they never said to me, "What are you doing?" Mm-hmm. It was just the feeling afterwards was like, "What are you doing? Mm-hmm. What are you doing? This is not what you signed up for." But it was up to me to make that transition. They never said, we got a lesson for you. It wasn't grandiose. You're the savior, or you're going to be. It was afterwards. It was like someone threw cold water in my face and said, "What are you doing?"
You had an anti-structural lifestyle, as they call it.
Yeah, I was crazy, man. I was an actor in New York. I thought I was going to be Denzel Washington. I wound up being a minister. You know, I was going to be an actor. I mean, I was an actor. And so, and even with my dad, and that's what helped me with the spiritual part, because my heart felt more open. I started being able to say, I love you more. I could say I was afraid. I could say I was wrong. I just can't explain it. I got by on less sleep. I just cut my hair. I had long dreadlocks. I just cut them here, but my hair grew faster. My nails and stuff. It was definitely something different. And people would say to me, "You been out in the sun? Where you been?" But I just being in their energy. And then I started doing Reiki. So this whole spiritual life opened up. And what their presence did for me was I had to get a grip and say, Michael, some weird things had happened. And I had a painful incident happen that they did. And I had to say, don't do it anymore. And they stopped. But my point, and we can talk about that. But my point is, it made me say, Michael, where else in your life have you let fear rule? Because even though these people look different and they come up different, walking through walls or stuff like that, they have never hurt you. If anything, you've become more human. Do you know what I mean?
Right. So yeah, because you had these experiences, and then it set you on to this path where you are now. Like you became more spiritual, and you became
Yeah.
this. You
I mean,
started
I was
studying to
working.
be a
I was
minister, and
yeah. I was
all
working
the,
towards that. Don't get me wrong. They
but
didn't
they
just
gave
wave a wand.
you the push. They gave
Yes.
you the push,
Yeah. It
and
sped it up. It
right,
sped it up.
it's interesting, Reverend Carter, because I met you over there at the Alien Expo over there in Knoxville last year. We talked just briefly, and Serfiel and I had the pleasure to see Ray Hernandez's speech there
Yes.
at the conference, and pretty amazing. I mean, the free study and everything that it has entailed, and we've talked a little bit about this with Brent Rains as well. And the doctor that he had on with us, I think Robert, he they have talked about, one of the things that Ray compared was the near death experience and the alien contact experience, and just how similar it was, and just how much it had really kind of had changed people's lives. People that have near death experiences, their lives are changed.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt. They're less fearful of death, and their life is radically improved. But you'll have the most hateful person become like the most loving person after something like that. So it sounds very similar, your experience, to others' experiences with alien contact and near death, which I think in some weird way are kind of one and the same. There's a real spiritual aspect
It's a
to these
rebirth. It's a
experiences.
rebirth. And I
Yeah.
wrote a chapter in that book for free, UFOs
Okay.
Beyond Belief.
Yeah.
I wrote a chapter on UFOs, and it was called the spirituality of the experiencer. Ray had asked me to write a chapter on that with someone else, and that's what we talked about. Now, I want to go back to the beginning when we started out. Everybody doesn't have that. And I don't know why. Some people say it's karma. Some people, I don't know why it is. But there are some people who have just the opposite. That it was so terrifying and traumatic. My
Yes.
life has changed, but it's changed a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to be able to make room for those stories.
Just like in the NDE, the near-death experiences, people also have hell-like experiences too.
Yes. Yeah.
But the thing is that the people that have those traumatic experiences, their lives become changed.
That's right. That's right.
So like the end result is still the same, no matter if it's a beautiful experience or it's absolutely just terrible experience. People come out of it changed somehow.
You come out of change. Yeah.
And isn't that, Sophia, more the expert on this, isn't that some of the same concepts in occultism?
Well, I mean, it's just the initiatory framework. It's the trial. I mean, that's, and it's psychedelic experiences are similar too, as far as people can have bad trips, but learn a lot from those bad trips. Yeah. And it's, but I think with the free study, I mean, it really showed that the experiencers are overwhelmingly positive. The majority are overwhelmingly positive.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes.
But even just those like negative experiences keep something positive.
Just like in near death experiences, the positive experiences outweigh the negative.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the initiation. And like you said, it's like an initiation almost, because my life totally changed after that. Now, do I enjoy a couple beers and a glass of wine? Sure. But that wasn't my whole thing for living. I'm chasing the carrot, I'm going to get this movie. I'm going to do this show, and I'm going to date this one, and I'm going to go get drunk, and I'm going to do cocaine. I'm just going to, no, it was just like, zoop. Because it was free will. I could have just rejected all that and kept going on my way. But there was something in me that made me go deeper into myself. And I credit myself with that, because I was on that path, really. I mean, I was reading and studying, but I was still partying and doing all that. But that was the cold water in my face. And it made me take myself and my life more seriously. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit, Reverend Carter, about your presentation, kind of what you're going to be talking about. Just kind of like
Sure.
give a brief teaser.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be showing some slides and about for some biblical scenes and talking about from Old Testament and New. We can get into both, and in the time allotted, and talk about why I believe that if you put the word angel, if you put ET or off world into whatever in every place you see the word angel in the Bible, it makes more sense because angel just means messenger. Um, and so how how our ancestors interacted with these beings and how some of these beings may be responsible, not intentionally, for the biblical religion as we know it, for Judaism as we know it, and for Christianity as we know it. I will argue that Jesus of Nazareth was either a hybrid or had very close contact with these off-world intelligences. And for me, that does not change his ministry at all, but that there's a possibility that he was such an advanced soul that he was having these contacts as well.
That could be a little, well, I don't know in our crowd, but that'd be a little controversial in some other crowds, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, but I want to be clear. This is from what I'm saying. It doesn't mean they have to take it as gospel.
Yeah.
But that's what we're talking about. We can agree to disagree, but I'm just saying where the evidence leads me. And it's like anything else. If there's some truth there, it'll stick with them. I'm not here to convince. I'm just going to give you what I'm saying, and you can go, "Oh, come on, man, that's crazy," and that's fine. We'll both sleep well at night. I'm not here to make you believe me. I'm just telling you what I think is a possibility.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely, and I do appreciate you doing it. I don't know if you can see my shirt. It says
yes, humans aren't real.
On it.
Yeah,
so
that's a little bit, but also in talking about how what we have to do to try to, we have to grow spiritually, whether it's ETs or not. It can be just your religion or being in nature, but we're going to have to live out these principles. Otherwise, we're going to destroy ourselves. And that's the bottom line for me. Yes, it's like my friends who were in Vietnam, those that survived, they were talking about, well, how are you going to act when you get back to the world? How are you going to act? Which was really, how are you going to act after you've had this experience? You've just been in war.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're going back to the world. How are you going to behave? Okay, well, now that I've had these experiences, how am I going to act now? What's the transformation, if any, when I get back in the world? Am I going to be more loving? Or am I going to at least try to be? How am I going to act now? I've had these experiences. What's that going to do? Because I got to go back to living life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's very, very similar. Very similar.
I got to go back to living life.
Well, so Reverend Carter, everybody that has already bought their ticket or they're thinking about buying a ticket, you are speaking at 12:15 to 1:15. That's Eastern time on Saturday, the 26th. So
I'll be there.
So come up next Saturday, and we really appreciate you being a part of this. And please tell everybody where they can find you right now if people want to get in touch or they want to see what and your books as well.
You can go to Amazon.com, just type in Reverend Michael J.S. Carter. My website is Reverend Michael J.S. Carter. And you can also email me at michaeljscarter@gmail.com. I will answer any queries. I get back to you as quickly as I can. I don't check my website that often. If you prefer to leave a message that way, I'll get to it. And you can go to Amazon, and I have 4 books, 2 on spirituality and 2 on extraterrestrial life, and UFOs Beyond Belief is the book that I've written the chapter for about UFO, about spirituality and the experiencer. I'm looking forward to it. I want y'all to stay healthy. And no matter what happens, keep the love in your heart. This will end. The virus will end, and we still got to learn to love each other. So don't get discouraged. If you got to turn the TV off, turn the news off for a couple of days. But we'll be okay. But we got to hang in there with each other.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. No truer words were spoken.
Yeah, got to hang in there. Don't let the fear make you crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Don't do it.
All right, Reverend Carter, thank you so much for joining us. Stay with us just for a little bit. We will be back with Guy Malone at about 4 Eastern Standard Time. So see you guys on the streams then.